oldest people in the room. And I'm used to being on the other extreme, being counted amongst the youngest. But then, looking at all of you, it's also abundantly clear. Some of you are first generation entrepreneurs. Some of you are second generation. Some of you are just starting out. But ultimately, you're all sons and daughters of the soil. A lot of you have survived in your own sectors of industry in extremely difficult times. And not one of you is an industrialist because of a subsidy or an incentive. And that, to my mind, is perhaps the most important part. Because with all my experience over the last 20-25 years, I have arrived at the conclusion, which it will be very difficult to shift me from, that industry or investment that arrives simply because you have a subsidy or an incentive is an industry that is inherently unviable and an industry that will not survive. And I have seen enough industry over my time that has come, lasted for the duration of those special conditions, and then disappeared. And I'm talking pre-1989 troubled times also. An example that I often remember, when Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act didn't apply to J&K. Hindustan Lever had one of its biggest plants in Jammu, in Badi Brahmana. Massive manufacturing that they did there because that act didn't apply. The moment that act was made applicable to Jammu and Kashmir, they didn't blink an eye. They left the unit as it was and moved out. And similar examples can be quoted in a number of areas. So perhaps the point I am trying to arrive at is that while we would like to see investment flow into Jammu and Kashmir, it must not be at the cost of our own entrepreneurs, of our own industry, of the people who have been here through thick and thin and who have survived in spite of all the hurdles and difficulties. I understand that the onus rests on me, on Satish, on my colleagues in the government, to try our best to make your lives easier, to make the policy framework more user-friendly, when we say a single window, then we actually should have a single window. Not a window that leads to another window, that leads to another window, that leads to a door that never opens. More often than not, when we talk about a single window, it's only a window that leads to the next department. My window will be for the power department. Once I'm done, then I'll send you to the window of Satish's department. And I'll still say, single window, मेरा ही window ना, एक ही window, उसका अलग window, दूसरे का अलग window. Clearances, particularly with regard to environment and forest clearances. In these last few months of meetings, both with the private sector as well as with elected representatives, one has come to realize that areas like environment and forest clearances are a major hurdle in terms of being able to grow our manufacturing and industrial base. I think we also have to be careful to seek to attract that investment that is sustainable here. Like it or not, Jammu and Kashmir's location is not going to change. We're at the northern corner of the country. We can't miraculously shift ourselves somewhere where there's a coastline. We are a consuming economy, but with a small market. We don't have a rich natural resource base. We have God's given beauty. We have water flowing in our rivers. Perhaps if we're lucky, we might be able to extract lithium from some of our mountains. But we don't have a very sort of rich resource base. Therefore, industry that is based on transporting raw material in and transporting finished product out is an industry that simply cannot work here unless we give transport subsidy, unless we give some other subsidies. So the areas that we should and will naturally be looking at will of course be tourism, agriculture, horticulture, post-harvest, value addition, electronics, information technology. Those of you who have set up small startups have done so without an active ecosystem to help and encourage you. I think together with CII, we need to sit down with them and understand from them what are the best practices, because there's no point reinventing the wheel. There's no harm in copying if somebody is doing it better. This is not an exam where अगर हम दूसरे की नकल करेंगे तो हमें exam center से उठा के बाहर फेंक देंगे. If somebody has already figured out how to do it well, then why should we shy away from trying to do the same thing? And therefore, I'll be very happy to sit with Madhav and his team at CII to understand. I'm not saying we have to compete with the Tamil Nadus of the world, but at least within our northern region, Himachal, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Delhi, are there practices that they have implemented that can be beneficial for us, that can strengthen this startup ecosystem, that can help investment, that can encourage those of you who are already invested here to look at expansion, to look at growing your investment. Is there something we can do to create a more conducive environment for investing into tourism? Because like it or not, even though we are shown astronomical numbers in terms of tourism growth, the actual addition to tourism infrastructure has not been much. I can count perhaps on the fingers of both my hands the number of good hotels that we've added in the last few years. Srinagar, Pahalgam, Sonmarg, Gulmarg, which obviously means that there is scope for further investment. But I also will be very sort of particular about attracting investment and ensuring that that investment leads to local employment. Because investment that comes with its own labor and workforce is not investment that benefits Jammu and Kashmir. What is the use for me if you bring your plant and set it up, maybe not here, on the other side of the mountain, somewhere between Kathua and Jammu. You set up your plant, you do your manufacturing, you've taken land from me on concession, you've got tax concessions as per the industrial policy, you've got all the other benefits. And yet your workforce is also not from here. And it's not as if what I am proposing is not done elsewhere. I was talking to somebody in Jammu this morning before I came here, because they are non-Himachali and they were looking to set up a tourism-related unit in one part of Himachal Pradesh. So I was trying to understand from them, you know, that whole thing, Jammu Kashmir should be open for everybody. We don't say no. But I wanted to understand from them, how easy was it as a non-Himachali to go to Himachal Pradesh and set up a unit. It is amazing how stringent the conditions are there. There's a section called Section 118, I think it is, for non-Himachalis to buy land for business purposes. It takes almost a year to get permission. You have to undertake to complete your unit, whether it's a hotel or a factory, within 3 years. Should you not, you have to reapply under the same sections and you'll get 2 years more, that's it. If you do not complete your unit within the stipulated 5 years, your unit will be seized by the government and sold, and you will not get 1 penny in compensation back. With that, you sign an affidavit that 75% of your workforce will be from Himachal Pradesh. Now, my simple question is this. If that is fine for them, then why can we not have a similar policy here to protect our lands, our identity, our industrial base, and provide jobs for our youngsters? These are all things that, sitting together, we will have to do. This government has its maiden budget in the first week of March. We've already had a round of collective consultations with all of you here in Srinagar. But allow me to request you that at an individual level, if there are inputs you would like to give or suggestions you would like to make, that will make your lives easier as entrepreneurs, as industrialists, as investors, as business people, then this is the time to do it, because this is the time when we're now sitting down to actually write the budget that I have to read out in the Assembly on the 7th of March. Right now we're operating on a blank slate. You have nothing really to judge me by. Whatever I have is what I inherited 4 months ago. Now is the time when I start to put my stamp, the stamp of this elected government, on the policy, on the framework, on the way forward. So this is the point from which my assessment time starts. So therefore, can I request those of you who would be interested to please give me your suggestions and your inputs. Let me assure you that not one of them will go unread, not one of them will go unconsidered, and those that we can begin with implementing immediately within the current framework that we have, I assure you we will. So that the next time you have amazing J&K aspiring for new growth goals a year from now in the annual session, I will be able to stand here and tell you that look, last year this is what was said, and in the ensuing 1 year, this is what we did to try and improve the environment for business in Jammu and Kashmir. This is where we succeeded, this is where we failed, this is where we need more help. So that this truly becomes a collaborative exercise. The whole purpose of these exercises is not that I come here and speak, because how does that benefit you? You could just as easily switch on the television and see this for 2 minutes in the evening, and that's that. It will benefit both sides if there is an actual flow of ideas, of discussion, of suggestions. So with this hope that today will start at an individual and at a collective level, this process of interacting and talking and discussing, I'd like to thank CII, Madhya, Junaid, their teams for inviting me, for inviting Satish, and for having us here with you. And I actually really look forward to many more such interactions with all of you. Thank you all very much.
न्यूज नेशन अब व्हाट्सएप पर खबरों के ताजा अपडेट के लिए न्यूज नेशन के इस QR कोड को स्कैन करें।